Hey, what's going on everyone? Today I'm going to be doing an overview of all of the weekly events. I'm going to talk about the requirements, the difficulty, the rewards, and if it's actually worth it to invest in the needed team for each event. So there are 7 different weekly events as you can see right here, and even though each event does run for just 24 hours, you can actually do each one twice every single week. Basically the way it works is even though it does run for 24 hours, it starts early in the morning. So you can do the event once anytime during the day, and then you can do it again after your daily reset, which will be either at midnight or 1 a.m. It's supposed to be at midnight for all players, but it got screwed up a bit with daylight savings time. And alternatively, you can do it again if you wake up early enough before the event switches to the next day's event. And I believe that happens at about 8 or 9 a.m. So if you wake up before that, you can do it again. Alright, so let's start at the top here with Gorwill's Great Escape. This event runs from Monday to Tuesday. It requires space characters and rewards actually some pretty good gear. At the later nodes, it's actually some pretty high tier gear, and I think long term this is going to be a very important event. They do plan to raise the gear and level cap later this year, and this event will really help you with the inevitable gear crunch. Now, that's more of a long-term goal. Early on, it's really not that great of an event to invest in because you need some pretty powerful and high star level space characters to really start getting good rewards, and as you probably know, Space is unfortunately not the best faction currently. Now, they do plan to rework Space in the future when our first raid comes, because I said that they currently plan to have the first raid be centered around Space, and along with that are going to come some reworks for the Space faction, as well as probably a few new Space characters. And of course, I'm still holding out for that Blacktron Dwayne rework. But currently, the Space characters aren't amazing, and you actually need them to be a pretty high level to beat these tiers. The recommendations given here are definitely a bit low. The battles are very difficult because the Space characters aren't that great. So even if you meet the requirements or the recommendations, the bare minimums, you might still not be able to actually complete the battle, and especially not get a gold trophy, which is required to then be able to loot the battle in the future to actually get the rewards. Now, the way this one works is I believe you just need 4 space characters for the very first tier at any star level or anything, but once you get to node 2, you need a full team of 5 space characters at 2 stars. And then after that, you're going to need a 3-star space team and then a 4-star, and it has to be a full team of 5. And currently there are only 5 farmable space characters, and one of those is Commander Cold, who only has 2 20 energy hard nodes. So he's a decent character, but he's not top tier, and he's one of the hardest farms in the game, so you're probably not going to want to put too many resources into him, especially if you're just looking to do well in this event, because the return on investment is not going to be that great. But with that said, this event does reward some pretty high tier gear at like the 5, 6, and 7-star nodes, which I think long term is going to be very useful. Next up is Explorer 101, which requires builder characters and rewards Explorer tiles. And this event runs from Tuesday to Wednesday. Now, the way Explorer 101 and Builder 101 work is for the very first node, there aren't any requirements. You just need builder characters or explorers if you're doing the other one. And then node 2, you need 2-star characters. Node 3, you need 3-star. 4, you need 4-star. And then the final node, it jumps all the way up to 6. So it skips 5-star and goes straight to 6. Now, the good thing about these events is you can actually get through the last battle with only a few characters at 6 stars. The battle themselves aren't that difficult. You basically just want to survive, which might be a bit difficult with just 1 or 2 characters. But if you have like 2 to 3, and maybe a couple of those are healers, or one of those is a healer, you'll probably be able to make it through the last tier just fine. With this one, the actual battles themselves aren't that difficult. There are 5 different characters that you can get tiles for in the Explorer 101 event. There's Crook Chuck, there's Cook Bart, Locust, Aurora, and Highwayman. So of those, all of them are pretty much useful except for Crook Chuck. He's not that amazing of a character, but luckily all the other ones here are. Now, the interesting thing with the Builder and Explorer events is sometimes it can be a better idea to do the third or the fourth node instead of the fifth one, and that's because you might not necessarily need the character that is on the fifth node. So for example, with this one, if you don't really need Highwayman tiles, but you do need Aurora tiles, instead you could just do the fourth node, and you would have a 25% chance to get tiles for her, instead of a 20% chance if you did the fifth node. So that's just something to keep in mind. I was actually doing the fourth tier of the Builder 101 event for quite a while up until just recently, and it was working pretty well for me. Next is probably the best event here, and that is Captain Peglegs Treasure, which requires pirates and rewards gold, which is currently the biggest crunch in this game. This event will run every Wednesday to Thursday, and you do need pirates at equivalent star levels to the actual nodes. So for example, you will need 1-star pirates for the first tier, 2-star pirates for the second, 3-star for the third tier, and so on and so forth, all the way up to the 7th tier. Now, the interesting thing about this one is you can use just 3 pirates for the first 3 tiers of this event, all the way up to the 50,000 gold mark on the 3rd tier. But once you move to the 4th tier, you do need a full team of 5 pirates. There isn't a node where you can just use 4, it jumps straight to 5. So for that reason, if you're a new player, I highly recommend that you make sure that you're getting Cook Bart to 3 stars as quickly as possible. As soon as you unlock the mashup store, you should be farming him exclusively until you get him to 3 stars. Then you can move to someone like Zane if you want to. Or you could keep farming Cook Bart. He's a really amazing character, best single target heal in the game, but make sure you're getting him to 3 stars as quickly as possible for this event, because you get Princess Argenta at 3 stars for free when you first start out, and you'll get tiles for Redbeard every day for just doing your dailies, and you'll get him to 3 stars in just about 3 weeks. So those 3 together can get you through the 3rd tier of this event, and can get you a total of 300,000 gold every single week, which isn't a whole lot, but it is going to make a pretty big difference. And then if you don't choose pirates to be your arena team, you are eventually going to want to come back to them to get to the later tiers of this event. At least try to shoot for 5 6-star pirates, because the 6th tier of this event will give you 1.8 million gold every week, whereas the 7-star tier will only get you slightly more at 2.1 every week. So 6-star should really be your main goal if you're trying to get further in this event. Now, I've actually heard that the last 2 nodes here, the 6 and 7-star battles, are actually quite difficult with 6 and 7 Gear 6 level 50 pirates, so that's something to keep in mind as well. You might actually need a couple 7-star pirates to complete that 6th tier of this event, but it definitely is worth it, because that 1.8 million or 2.1 is going to help you out quite a bit, because gold is, like I said, currently the biggest crunch in this game. I mean, you need 1.5 million just to take one character from 6 to 7 stars, 2.5 if you want to take them from 5 to 6. So the more you can get every week, the better. After that, we have Book Learning, which is the event that requires Castle, and it rewards XP scrolls, and this one runs from Thursday to Friday. Now, this event is slightly different than the Gold event, because you don't need a full team of 5 characters, at least for the first 5 tiers. You just need the required star level, which will be equivalent to the node. So Node 1 will need 1-star Castle, Node 2 will need 2-star Castle, and so on. After Node 5, though, you might need a full team of 5, but I don't think it really matters either way, because it's very difficult or even impossible to just beat the 5th battle with only 3 castle characters, so it's very likely that you will need a full team of 5 for the 6th and 7th tier, even if it's not required, just because the battles are pretty difficult. Now, the good thing about this one is you don't really need to work on your castle too much. The first 4 battles aren't that difficult, and also this one just really isn't that important, because there is this pack in the store right here that costs 1,120 gems and gives you 400,000 XP scrolls. If you just save up for one of these, you'll be set for a while, and it'll probably take you less than 10 days to save up the 1,100 gems needed. Now, when I first started playing back in November, it's been about 4.5, almost 5 months now, I think. I bought 3 of these packs, totaling 1.2 million scrolls, and I'm still sitting at 800k right now, almost 900 actually. So I've really only gone through one in like 5 months. So if you just buy one of these packs, it's going to last you for a while. It might not last you the full 5 months or whatever, but it'll at least set you up for the first couple months of your play. And then if you need to, you can save up for another one of these packs, and you won't really have to work on your castle too much for this event. But with that said, Castle is a really fantastic faction. It's the current meta, at least the King's Court trio is, of Jester, Burnibus, and Magisto. So if you're not already, you should be farming Jester and Burnibus. I believe in this next update they're both becoming a bit harder to farm, but they're still going to be two really amazing late game characters, so it's definitely worth it to keep an eye on them even if you don't plan to go far in this specific event. Next is Builder 101, which we've already briefly touched on. This one requires Explorer characters. It rewards Builder tiles and runs from Friday to Saturday. It's the same setup with the star requirement for each battle being 1, 2, 3, 4, and then jumping to 6, and also the battles themselves not being too difficult. The characters you can get here are Poppy, Fitness Instructor, Ash, Lloyd, and King Brutus. Now with this one, like I mentioned earlier, I was looting the 4th node pretty much every time this came around because I didn't really need King Brutus tiles at all, and I really wanted to increase my chance of getting tiles for Lloyd. Now with this event, there are 2 characters here that aren't fantastic, Poppy and Fitness Instructor. Fitness Instructor is actually pretty underrated in my opinion. She can give crit chance up and attack up too, which will really boost the overall damage output of your team, and she also has a decent heal, but she's still not like a top tier character, unlike Ash and Lloyd. And then of course Poppy is probably the worst healer in the game right now. Now King Brutus, he's not amazing. He's definitely solid in a castle team, but he is certainly not required. Most players that do have Brutus aren't using him in their teams. Typically players are just using the King's Court trio that I just mentioned of Jester, Burnibus, and Magisto, and then pairing them with 2 other characters like maybe Aurora or Bart, or Lloyd, or even an attacker like Highwayman. So really Brutus isn't that necessary, and sometimes the taunt he throws around can actually be detrimental to your team on defense because it can help the enemy target down on one unit. Because the thing that really makes King's Court powerful is the constant swapping of taunts between Burnibus and Jester, and then the health recovery with Magisto and whatnot. And I think more times than not, Brutus actually hurts that team. So you might just want to go for the 4th node, unless you do want tiles for Brutus, who you might want to get tiles for him anyway if you want to get Officer Primo. Second to last is the Missing Materials event that requires city characters and rewards quite a few ability materials, and this one runs from Saturday to Sunday. Now this event actually doesn't have any star requirements, so you can attempt it with any city characters you may have. Now the recommendations here are actually pretty off. Like for the 4th battle here, it recommends level 30 gear 4. You pretty much need level 50, probably gear 5 or 6 to complete this battle, and you probably also need Aurora and the Ice Glider. Once you get her, the city battles become much easier. My personal city characters are all pretty bad, but thanks to Aurora, I was able to just keep bringing them back, and I was able to brute force my way through this 4th battle. I got close on the 5th one, but I haven't quite been able to beat it yet. I might be able to next week, which would be nice because the rewards for this event are really good. At the final tier, I think you can get around a total of 60 of the tier 1 ability elixirs, 40 of the tier 2s, and 30 of the tier 3s, something around there. And that's quite a bit to be getting every single week, and that's going to really help you level up your characters. So I think it's definitely worth it to invest in Aurora a little bit, maybe take her to 4 stars. Even if you're not using her in your arena team, you probably will eventually, and she's really useful for this event. She can carry some pretty weak city characters. I think my Ash is actually even just like 2 stars, and she was still able to do enough damage to get me through that 4th tier. So the battles are more difficult than the recommendations, so just keep that in mind. But if you do have Aurora, it's going to be a lot easier, and this is definitely one that's worth preparing for because the rewards are quite good. And then finally, from Sunday to Monday is Bad Tour, which has no requirements and rewards set tiles. Now, given it is only the 4 starter set, so they aren't incredible late game sets, but it's still better than nothing. And this event is super easy. The final tier, you go up against some relatively weak space characters, and as we talked about earlier, the space faction isn't that great. So as long as you have a couple decent characters in your arena team, you should be able to beat this final tier without too much trouble, and I don't think there's any star requirements either. With this one, you will get 12 tiles, 12 set tiles every week, which will just help you get up those beginner sets a little bit quicker. The Lighthouse and the Spy Track 1 are not great, but the Raft Raiders and Guarded In are pretty solid. Raft Raiders is great for an early game pirate team. Forbidden Island is going to be better late game, and then the Guarded In is actually one of the best catch-all sets in the game. It doesn't work with just Castle, it works with just about any team since it has some abilities that don't specifically mention just the Castle characters. It's just any heroes, like it'll give them a chance to gain payback at the end of their turns, which will help boost your overall damage output. So that's a really solid set to get tiles for, and I heard that they might be updating this in the future to include some of the later game sets as well. So basically, to sum all that up pretty quickly, the Gores Great Escape event rewards some pretty good gear, but the space characters aren't great, so you probably shouldn't invest in them too much exclusively for that event. The Explorer 101 and Builder 101 events are also relatively easy, but it will take a little while to get to that last tier because you do need 6-star characters for those respective factions. Captain Peglegs Treasure is probably the most important event here, and it's really crucial that you get 3 pirates to 3 stars as quickly as possible to start completing the 3rd tier of this event, and eventually you are going to want to work on your pirates more to get to the later tiers in this event, because at tier 6 you can get 1.8 million gold, and at tier 7 you can get 2.1 million gold every week. So definitely make sure that you are working on your pirates, even if they're not your arena team. Book learning is a decent event, but this isn't where most of your scrolls are going to come from. Instead, you should save up and buy one of the 400,000 scroll packs in the store for 1,100 gems. It'll only take you about a week to save that up, and then you can get 400,000 scrolls, which will last you for quite a while, at least a couple months. Missing materials will give you quite a few ability elixirs, so make sure you're at least working on your city team a little bit, and a really strong Aurora, or even just like a 4-star Aurora with the Ice Glider, can carry you through at least to the 4th or maybe even the 5th tier of this event. And then the Bad Tour will give you some tiles for some early game sets. This one is probably the least important of all of them. Alright, well that's going to do it for my overview of all of the weekly events. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, and I will try to answer all of them. Alright, thanks for watching.